Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. Sharon would have loved to have been here herself.
With a heavy heart that we do come here to say goodbye to Sharon, to her memory. And as I said just before, she's going to be sorry she missed out on this one.
Yeah.
And friends, that's exactly what we want to hear today. We want to hear chuckles. So let's go over the statistics of Sharon. Okay. I knew her as Zierath, but we also knew her as Stack, so we'll call her Sharon today. She was born just a few days before Pearl Harbor. I think most of us know what Pearl Harbor is all about. It had nothing to do with Sharon. She didn't. She couldn't have known about it. She was born December 2nd, 1941.
Yep.
She died just this past week, Tuesday, May 29th of 2012 at Sanford Hospital. She'd been battling cancer, and it was a problem that was not going to go away. And if anything, her death saved her from a lot of heartache and misery of having to go through chemo and all of that. She's preceded in death by her son, Robbie Stack, and or Robert, I guess we have to be formal here. And she was married to Ellen Stack, and this marriage had years of happiness that was filled with 3 children. Of course, I mentioned Robbie. He's only been gone a few years now, but also another son, Richard Stack, who's with us today, and her precious daughter, Tricia, who has taken up the role of being the go-getter in the family, the one that she did a lot of work to get this going today, and we really appreciate all the work and effort that Tricia put into this. But I want to go back to Robbie for a minute because I want to talk about something that is near and dear to all of us, and this is going to be kind of a funny side note, if you don't mind. Sharon is responsible, and I'm going to explain how, for a lot of music in this family. There are 4 musicians associated with the Zierath Stack relationship. 2 drummers, 1 guitarist, mandolinist, and 1 bass player. And all made their mark. But we don't have any music today for Sharon's gathering. Go ahead, come on. That's as funny as it gets.
Aren't you going to sing for us?
I'd sing for you, but I'd like to still call some of you my friends. But I'm going to get into that in a second, but I also want to mention the grandchildren, Mandy from Robbie, and Megan, Rachel, and Jackson from Tricia. So these are the ones that are going to miss Sharon the most. But I want to talk about this musical identity that we have because this is Robbie's funeral. There's a nice picture of Robbie on. Robbie, as many of you know, played for the group called Dakota Days, and they played at the American Legion. And he was well known in the community as a fine drummer. And he also played with my friend Mike Rothenmuller out there in a group. And it says in this, and this is my favorite part, it says that his God-given talent for music was acquired at an early age, inspired by Butch and Larry Zierath, his uncles. And then there's the group, the Beatles or something. I don't know much about them. I think they're from a foreign country. But I am the oldest brother of the group, and we want to all go back to the 1950s right now. We had the Mahers living just off to the right of us, and there were the Snellings that lived across the street from us. And my sister was your average teenager, and she had those wild 1950s clothes. She was, I guess that was the beginning of the teeny bopper era, but Sharon and Jeanette, especially, they were best buds, and Mary Jane. They did all kinds of things together, and we were all under the tutelage of my mother, Viola, or as she later became to be known, the Ayatollah Viola.
You're making me shake the camera.
Viola, as many mothers do, seemed to have it in, especially for Sharon. But it paid off in so many different ways. I'm going to tell you how. Sharon had excellent taste in music. And I think it was partly from the influence of the Schmeyer family. Because my mother and her sister, Marie, they were avid collectors of 78s. And even I, in my pre-rock and roll days, remember listening to Les Paul and Mary Ford, and Hank Williams, and even Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. All these wonderful 78s, all this wonderful music. My sister, as any teenager in the 50s did, she got interested in rock and roll. And that one character, Elvis Presley, I don't know if you've heard of him, but I tell you what, but she liked them all, and she liked country music too. So she established this collection of 45s. And she had excellent taste. We cannot put Sharon down for having bad taste. She had excellent taste in musicians. My personal favorites from that collection were the Everly Brothers, but Sharon loved them all. Now here's where the Ayatollah and my sister benefited me. If Sharon were to go anywhere, my mother would say, well, you're not going anywhere without your little brother. So a famous group from the 50s, a rock and roll group called Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps. They were playing at the Hollywood Theater. Remember the Hollywood Theater? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do. Gene Vincent and the Blue Caps were playing there, and this was in the days before the big teenage concerts. And she had to take me. Well, after listening to Gene Vincent on the phonograph, I couldn't wait to see Gene Vincent, and the Blue Caps, they took over Hollywood Theater, were taking the tickets, and here comes this little 10-year-old snot-nose. That was me. And they kind of took me in. In between concerts that Gene and the group put on was a movie. It was called Girls Town. I can still remember the lyrics to it. And it was about some rebellious teenage girls like my sister and Jeanette and Margaret and Florence, Mary Jane. The Blue Caps took me in. They just thought it was wonderful that this kid, all these teenage girls and a few really cool guys were there, and there's this 10-year-old kid. But they let me sit with him during the theater, during the movie presentation, and then when they had to get back up on stage, they did their concert. Blew my mind. And if I recall correctly, I told Butch about it as soon as I got home. But I also aided Sharon, and I was friends enough with the Blue Caps to be able to go up and get their autographs for my sister, which she had for a very long time. They might still exist somewhere in her collectibles. But that passed on. You see, what girl in the 50s who wore those full, what would they call them, cans or something like that?
Petticoats.
Petticoats.
Poodle skirts.
Poodle skirts. Well, no, I don't remember any poodles. When we did get dogs, we got dachshunds. But she liked me and encouraged me enough because I was showing an interest in the things that she really liked musically, that she did not mind. Now, anyone that's Sharon's age, think back, would you have allowed your 10-year-old, well, at 8 years old when it started, to come in when you're not there and play your records? Sharon let me play the records. And if she got a new record and I hadn't heard it yet, she said, "Did you hear this one?" And I was always usually playing the same ones. And of course, Presley and the Everly Brothers and Gene Vincent and anyone else you care to name from that era, you know. I had a guitar that we found that had no strings or bridge on it. It was an old archtop guitar, and I used to stand in front of the mirror as long as no one was looking and pretend I was one of these great rock and roll guys. Now my sister knew what was going on, and she just tolerated it. But you see, Sharon's interest flagged off on me, and then my brother took an interest in music too. And that group that was mentioned in Rob's, the Beatles, I think that was a big influence on Butch too, and which turned into a great musician. In fact, he's a great bass player. He's playing with a group now called
Help him out.
Group Therapy, I think it's called.
Group therapy, that's what it is.
But anyway, he's making quite a living as a professional musician. And I got sidetracked into bluegrass, and I ended up playing bluegrass. But as we pointed out at the beginning here, reading from Rob's obituary, both Robbie and his younger brother Richie turned into great drummers in Sioux Falls bands. Dakota's Days. Forced Entry was Richie's group, and they were heavy metal. It was a little out of my league, but Richie played that kind of drums perfectly. He was a good musician, still is, I hope. At any rate, we all came to this bounty of music, and Sharon was an encouragement all through her life towards that music. She even would make fun of me when I was rehearsing my bluegrass musicians back in Sioux Falls. Oh, we're in Sioux Falls, that's right. But I would temporarily like to turn the podium over to anyone else to come up here and tell their relationship with Sharon so that we can get a better picture. You're listening to one 10-year-old's version of his big sister, who I love dearly. Would anyone else like to share? Oh.
People don't know who I am, but Sharon was like a camera to me. I remember when I was in like fourth grade, my aunt drove her out for grandparents' day. She made my life puzzle.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to share?